Dadey. So today I'm going to be starting a new chapter book. So the series that I'm going to be starting holds a place in my heart because I grew up reading almost all of the books. It's called The Bailey School Kids. And so The Bailey School Kids is a series where there's four main characters. We have Howie, Melody, Liza, and Eddie. And so these four kids, they in every single story they meet a pretty harmless person. The reason why I'm going like person is because the person may or may not be mythical. Now, mythical means like fantasy or imaginary or make believe. Okay, so there's always something a little off about one of the adults in the story. So, like an example of a mythical creature would be a vampire or a werewolf or Frankenstein. Okay, so like those are all made up characters. Okay, so but some of the adults in the books are kind of creepy. Okay, so earlier in the day, I Zoomed with some students and I had them vote on a Bailey School Kid book that they wanted to read because I have four of them here with me. So the ones that they voted for unanimously, which means all of them, voted for this one. It's the Bailey School Kids Ghosts Don't Eat Potato Chips. So, again, this is made up, but it's a pretty good story. So these are our main characters right here. I'm gonna get. I think this is Eddie, Howie, Melody, Liza. I'm pretty sure, but we'll confirm as we read. Okay, so the back of this book. So let's start off by talking about the authors. So this book is by Debbie, Dadey, and Marcia Thornton Jones. Okay, and on the back of the book, it gives us a little explanation of what the book is about. So it says Eddie's great aunt Matilda is sick, and the Bailey School kids are helping her out. Now, before we left school, we were talking about family trees. And so if you have so you have your mom and your dad, okay? And then their parents are your grandparents. And then you have your grandma and your grandfather. So their brothers and sisters wouldn't be your aunt and your uncle, it would be your great aunt and your great uncle. So your grandma's sister would be your great aunt. So there's his great aunt is his grandmother's sister. So he has great aunt Matilda. But after they spot a mysterious man lurking in the attic, strange things start to happen. Could there really be a ghost living in great aunt Matilda's house? Mm-mm-mm. So we're going to read the first two chapters today. And it's going to leave you wanting more, but I'm going to try to post more videos. And if there's pictures, I will show you the pictures. I'll hold it like this so you can see the cover. Okay. Chapter 1, Great Aunt Matilda. Ah, Grandma, Eddie whined. Remember, I think Eddie is this one. Why do I have to go? Great Aunt Matilda doesn't even like me. Eddie's grandmother sighed. Because Matilda is my sister, and families take care of each other. She never did anything for us, Eddie mumbled. Eddie's grandmother thumped him on the head. That's not the point. She's been by herself since Uncle Jasper died. Now she's sick and she needs our help. All you have to do is take her meals to her. You and Howie can take her to her lunch on the way to the playground. Eddie pulled a baseball cap over his red curly hair, so it's definitely Eddie, and grabbed the dish off the kitchen counter. He didn't complain to his grandmother again, but he slammed the door extra hard on his way out. So I'm going to show you a picture of Eddie with his grandmother. I'm going to hold it here for a second and read this page. His best friend Howie was waiting for him at the street corner. What's that? Howie asked. It's a sick casserole for my great aunt Matilda. Don't you mean it's a great casserole for your sick aunt? Howie asked. Eddie snickered. You don't know my grandmother's cooking. Howie laughed and pulled out a crushed bag of potato chips from his shirt pocket. You want some garlic chips? No, those chips are worse than my grandmother's cooking, Eddie said. You should get the kind I like. So remember, I think this is um, Howie. And then there's Eddie. The two boys headed down a side street with Howie crunching away. In just a few minutes, they stood in front of Aunt Matilda's house. The branches of a huge weeping willow tree dragged the ground beside the fence. The rusty iron gate squeaked open. Eddie and Howie looked at the big house without saying a word. Dark windows stared down at them as they walked up the crumbling steps to the door. This house looks like a reject from an old horror movie, Howie whispered. Eddie nodded. It's definitely ready for a wrecking ball. Howie crunched nervously on his potato chips. Let's hurry up. This place is creepy. Eddie lifted the rusting door knocker and let it fall with a thud. A window on the second floor creaked open and a gray-haired woman looked out. Who's at my door? It's us, Eddie yelled. Grandma sent your lunch. Aunt Matilda wrinkled her nose like she just sucked a lemon. Well, hurry and bring it to me, and shut the door behind you. Then she slammed the window so hard it rattled. So there's Great Aunt Matilda. She's pretty scary. Eddie pushed the door open. A musty smell hit them like an ocean wave. Phew, smells like something died in here. Has your Aunt Matilda ever heard of air fresheners? Howie asked. Old people don't care when things stink, Eddie said. Quit that whispering and bring me my lunch, Aunt Matilda said from her bedroom. An old lady could die of starvation getting fed by you. She's not very nice. I'd like to feed her a thing or two, Eddie muttered. The two kids stepped around a pile of yellowed newspapers and started up the creaking steps. Eddie's shoelaces slapped the faded carpet and the boys sidestepped a broken chair in the upstairs hall. Aunt Matilda's room was at the end of the hall on the second floor. Aunt Matilda was sitting up in bed with a box of tissues by her side. Wadded up tissues were scattered on the floor. Wisps of gray hair hung around her face like spider webs, and her wrinkled skin was the color of old pears. Ooh. She looked like she had been through World War II instead of the flu. She pointed a bony finger at Eddie. I remember you. You're the mean one. Eddie shrugged. It must run in the family. Humph, Aunt Matilda grunted. Who's that with you? I don't know him. Eddie choked on a potato chip. I'm Eddie's friend Howie. Would you like some chips? He held out the crumpled bag. That's the garlic kind my Jasper always ate. It's probably what killed him. Who's Jasper? Howie whispered as he stuffed the bag into his shirt pocket. That's my uncle, Eddie whispered back. Then, before Aunt Matilda could say anything, Eddie shoved the dish at her. Grandma said to ask if you need anything else. Aunt Matilda nodded. As long as you're here, can you water the garden? As they walked down the steps, Eddie and Howie heard Aunt Matilda blowing her nose. There's Aunt Matilda with yelling at them. I never knew you had a crazy aunt, Howie said. She's not half as crazy as Uncle Jasper was, Eddie said as he pushed open the back door. We're just lucky he's not around anymore. All right, so as I said, we're going to read chapter 2. So chapter 2 is called Weed Soup. So weeds are like unwanted like plants and grass and things like that you might have grown in your garden. And so what's bad about weeds is that they can sometimes take away from the nutrients and the things that other plants need that you want around. It can make it hard for them to survive. So usually people pull weeds out of their garden. So chapter 2 is Weed Soup. I can't believe she calls this a garden, Eddie said, shaking his head. It's just a bunch of weeds. I bet your Aunt Matilda uses it to make weed soup, Howie laughed as he helped drag a garden hose between the gnarled trees. Crabgrass salad, too, Eddie giggled as he tried to turn on the water. Something's wrong with this faucet. Here, let me try, Howie said, dropping his bag of potato chips on the old picnic table. No, if I can't get it, you sure can't, Eddie said, as didn't get a chance to try again because Aunt Matilda's screech interrupted them. Did you expect me to eat this with my hands? She yelled from the window. Bring me a fork and a glass of water. Eddie shoved the hose at Howie. You'll have to water the garden while I go water Aunt Matilda. Howie looked at the old house as his friend disappeared inside. Several windows were broken, and wood was nailed over the empty spaces. The attic window was so high, Howie had to tilt his head back to see it. What Howie saw made him freeze. Someone was staring down from the attic window. Howie rubbed his eyes and looked again. No one was there. That's strange, Howie muttered. You're strange, Eddie said as he came out the back door. If you don't watch out, a bird will get you in the eye. Howie ignored Eddie's remark. Were you just in the attic? Eddie grabbed the hose from Howie. I don't even know how to get in the attic of this joint. Does anyone else live here? Howie asked. Just my crazy aunt. Eddie tried to twist the water spigot. Why do you care? Maybe we better call the police because I just saw someone in the attic. Howie pointed to the small window at the top of the house. Eddie stared at the window for just a few minutes and then laughed. Don't be silly. It's just a shadow from those big trees. Howie looked at the window again, but he didn't see anything because Eddie finally got the hose on and squirted Howie right in the face. Cut it out, Howie yelled. Eddie laughed. I thought you might like to cool off. Howie backed away from the weed patch. If you don't quit it, I'm going to the playground without you. Okay, I'll stop if you wait for me. As Eddie squirted the plants, Howie went to get his potato chips. Instead, he found an empty chip bag. Hold on, sorry. I lost my place. Who said you could eat all my chips? I told you I hate garlic chips, Eddie said. Howie looked under the old picnic table and gulped. Eddie, come here. Eddie dropped the hose and walked over to the picnic table. What do you want? He asked. Howie pointed. Look under there. Eddie shook his head, but he glanced under the table. So what? You spilled your chips. What's the big deal? Howie banged his head on the table. Ow. Look, Eddie. Really, look. This is important. Okay. Keep your eyeballs glued on. Eddie looked again. Hey, the chips are letters. A, I'll write this down. T, I, C. What's that spell? Attic, Howie yelled at Eddie. Somebody spelled out attic. Eddie shrugged. It's just a coincidence. Either that or Aunt Matilda has smart ants in her yard. With that, Eddie stepped on the chips and smashed them into tiny pieces. Howie looked back up at the attic window. It was still empty. Maybe it had been a shadow, but what if it hadn't? All right, so that's the end of chapter 1 and 2. So I think in the next chapter, we're going to meet the other two characters, okay, Melody and Liza. Okay, so hopefully I will be posting that tomorrow. So you're going to have to stay tuned. All right, have a great rest of your day. Hope you're able to get outside. Bye.